for joining me today. It's time for the Astrology of DC Part 2. So I'm going to have the other two people in the Justice League and then a couple of classics. So I hope you enjoy this. Starting out today, we have Ray Fisher as Cyborg. Wasn't very prominent, and I don't really remember him in any of the 70s, like the Super Friends or anything like that. Nevertheless, I have Ray Fisher's chart here, and we do not have an exact birth time for him. So, of course, if you want to contact me at nobsyoga.com at gmail, I'm sorry, nobsyoga@gmail.com. Yes, I do know my email address. I would greatly appreciate it if you know his birth time. So starting out, now the moon here is kind of close to the cusp. So this could either be in Pisces or it could either be in Aquarius here. Well, let's go ahead and just use Pisces here. Now, the moon is almost directly conjunct the north node of the moon here. And he was born close to a lunar eclipse one way or another. The problem with being born on a lunar eclipse is it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of express yourself. And you can see this a lot in Donald Trump. Really what it does is it makes somebody very emotionally insecure. So what they do is they way overcompensate on ego. And this can be very difficult. So what you'll see here is you'll see a moon-Rahu connection along, and this is kind of close here, but a K2 like sun connection. And then Donald Trump has this exact aspect because he was born one day away from a lunar eclipse. So for him, this is in a different axis though. He is a Taurus. I'm sorry, this man is Ray Fisher is a Pisces, and ooh, hey, he has an exalted Mercury. Yeah, he's kind of like a Pisces and Virgo axis, so that operates differently because, of course, they're different signs. So the other thing that I see about his chart here is, of course, there's an exalted Mercury almost exactly conjunct K2, and this is going to be in the 7th house. So what this gets is it makes somebody a little bit neurotic. It makes them a perfectionist. So when you put Mercury into the sign of Virgo, that's his point of exaltation. So it really exudes all the Virgo qualities of purity, exactitude, perfectionism, things like that. But when you conjunct it with the south node of the moon, it takes that in and explodes it into hyperdrive. And the reason why is because the south node of the moon represents an area of life where we have like this big gaping hole. Like we really want to put our attention into that. So what this is going to do is this is really going to exacerbate Mercury. And also too, the south node of the moon or K2 has a fire quality. So it really explodes it. The other thing that I see here is Mars and Sun and Venus are all conjunct here in the sign of Leo. This is actually great for an actor or somebody that likes to be up in front of people, public speakers, politicians too even. So he could, if you wanted to get into politics later on in his life, I think he would do very well at it. The next thing that you notice here in his Dasha sequence is he's also going through this exalted Mercury period, and he's been going through it for quite a long time. So I'm looking at Ray's chart, and I'm getting the impression that this guy is pretty hard on himself. He's a perfectionist. He really puts his heart and his soul into everything that he does. And this, of course, being 7 places from the moon, that usually means relationships with other people. The other thing that I see here is, let's see, Saturn's okay placed. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Saturn's difficultly placed here in the sign of Scorpio. Now, Saturn being in Scorpio, it really doesn't like to be there because the traditional Vedic ruler of Scorpio is Mars. And when you put Saturn into Scorpio, it takes the passion quality and it adds this layer of, how do I put it? Kind of like this. No, it's not perfection. Saturn's all about like restriction. So what this does is somebody wants to be passionate. They want to express their passion, but when you put Saturn in there, it makes them hold it back a lot. And there could be multiple reasons here. This is in the 9th house, so this could actually be the relationship with his father taking hold. I mean, we talk a lot about in astrology about like archetypes, mother and father. So when you're looking at that, father is generally represented by the 9th house in Saturn, and moon is represented by mother. So that's kind of how I was taught to do it. All right, moving on here. Ezra Miller as the Flash. So I'm personally a bigger fan of the show. Well, at least the first 2 seasons, more than the Flash here on the Justice League movie. However, so I was kind of surprised that they decided to go with this versus the guy who actually plays the Flash on the WB TV show. So I don't know. It seems like it seems like DC really has their act together with TV, but they just can't seem to get the movie thing going again. All right, Ezra Miller. Okay, so we do have a birth time for him. This guy's a Scorpio ascendant with the moon in the 1st house. difficult placement. When the moon is in the first house in Scorpio, it makes somebody emotionally unstable. Usually you want to look for other indicators in the chart, however. So what I would look and see is, okay, this one's conjunct his ascendant, so that's going to really feed into his personality a lot. Let's see, the other thing we could do is look at the quality of Mars, which is the ruler of the first house. Mars is here in the sign of Gemini, so that's another difficult placement. But then what we want to do is we want to take a look at where the ruler of the Gemini is, and that's Mercury. Mercury's exalted in its own sign here. So he actually, I think Ezra and Ezra and the last guy, Jay Fisher, weren't born too far apart because he has an exalted Mercury as well, conjunct the Sun and Jupiter. So, and this is in the 11th house. So this actually overcompensates for a lot of his emotional difficulty. What he does here, like I was talking about with Jay Fisher, he puts this shroud of perfection around it. However, this works a little bit more in his benefit because it's conjunct Jupiter and the Sun. So what this does is wherever Jupiter is placed in a chart, it's actually a benefic planet. So this is really going to take a lot of the sting out of what would otherwise be a rough placement. Let's see, other than that, Saturn's fairly well placed here in the sign of Capricorn. It is retrograde, so that can make somebody a little bit hard on themselves as well. So when we kind of take a look at his chart, here's somebody that has strong emotions, has a little bit of difficulty controlling his emotions. However, he's been able to channel it into something good here in the sign of Virgo. Whereas, so like I was saying, in Ezra's case, it works as benefit. In Jay Fisher's case, it works as a deficit. Taking a look at his chart here, now he is definitely going through his Mercury Dasha, but take a look at this. In 2019, he's going to be going through his Ketu Dasha. So Ketu is generally a typical, its Dasha is generally difficult because what it does is we're used to like going and going and going in the world, but what Ketu does, it makes you want to withdraw. And everybody usually sees that as a negative. However, if you take the time and you use it right, you can actually develop a lot spiritually. And this is in his 8th house. This is actually a strong placement for Ketu. Ketu being in the 8th house really makes somebody want to connect with that deep divine that we all have inside. Now, on the opposite side, Rahu here being in the 2nd house, this is a good placement for money. So this will override a lot of the difficulty that he has here. And if you take a look at the ruler of Jupiter, it's actually 10 places from Mars too. Or I'm sorry, 10 places from Rahu. And this is actually pretty good, like I said, for career development. So I would say that this is probably going to be a wash for him. All right. Linda Carter, or if you watched the video yesterday, my mnemonic device, you know that little spinny thing she did. So yes, Linda Carter was the original Wonder Woman, at least as far back as I can tell. I think there was one Wonder Woman movie before Linda Carter, but she really took the TV show on and really like blew it up. So yeah, feminist icon. And taking a look at his chart, she was born here in beautiful and extremely hot Phoenix, Arizona. Beautiful, high but dry. Hot but dry. So yes, she was born as a Virgo ascendant. Actually, I don't see too many Virgo ascendants when I'm looking at famous people. With Saturn in the 1st house, very particular and pays a lot of attention to herself. This makes somebody very self-conscious and self-aware. So she's very aware of how she behaves in the world. She's very particular about how she behaves in the world. Now take a look at this Jupiter-Moon conjunction. This is actually called a let's see, Guru Chandra Yoga. When these two come together, especially here in the sign of Pisces, it makes somebody very emotive. And so if you take a look, this is in her 7th house here. So it really gives a very emotional, empathic, intuitive quality to Linda Carter. I know she's been in a lot of social justice causes, and especially like for like gay and lesbian rights. I know I think she's actually comes here to Phoenix and she's in the Gay Pride Parade, and it's actually a very big parade. If you ever want to go to the biggest Pride Fest, it's here in Phoenix, although I can't verify that. Or can I? All right. So then also too, so Saturn here being in the 1st house makes somebody a very hard worker. So, you know, for her, it wasn't just, you know, something came out of nowhere. She really worked hard to where she got because she put in the effort. Let's see, other placements. Rahu here in the 6th house in the sign of Aquarius. This can make some difficulty with coworkers. Rahu in the 6th house too usually gives somebody a very good immune system, so they don't, believe it or not, they don't get sick too easy. Let's see, other placements. Mars here also in Gemini, just like the last guy. He had his Mars in Gemini. This is in her 10th house though, so This really, Mars and Gemini can really make somebody push their ideas on somebody. So just keep that in mind. And this being in the career, I think she likes to get her way, especially being conjunct Uranus here. It really gives it a very unpredictable, spontaneous, out of nowhere quality. So she might be working and then just change her mind and then do something different. So, and that's kind of interesting because it can be a little bit difficult to reconcile with this Virgo energy. However, it's like, so you have Virgo and Gemini, and they're not polar opposites of each other. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. And how they operate is really like, oh, how do I put this? So Gemini is really about divergent thinking. They have these really big, great ideas, but it's hard for them to bring it down into concrete form. And then here, Virgo's the exact opposite. It's very meticulous, very planning, very organized. And so, if somebody can learn how to use these, it actually works quite well for them. Now, if we take a look at Mercury, it's actually here in the sign of Leo, and that's the ruler of both of these houses. So, and this is in the 12th house too, conjunct Venus and the south node of the moon, which usually means loss of love at some point. But this too also makes somebody very spiritual as well. So just going back to the spirituality and the placements of Ketu, the 8th and the 12th house, the 8th and the 12th house are the two houses that are really associated with spirituality or trying to make that deep connection with the divine. So she has a lot of great placements for that. So I should really take a look and see if she does like meditation or yoga or something like that. All right, Christopher Reeve as Superman. And of course, he's deceased. He died in 1990, late 90s. I don't remember the exact year, but I know he fell off a horse. He broke his neck, and then he had some difficulty coming from that. And I think eventually he had multiple sclerosis, or he died from complications related to his injury. So Christopher Reeve, we do have an exact birth time for him, and check this out. K2 on the ascendant, conjunct Pluto. Wow. This is a lot of very strong, visceral, subconscious energy. Here in the sign of Cancer, really kind of shows up in somebody who oh geez, this is very empathic, and it's empathic to the point where it's very difficult to understand where his emotions begin and where somebody else their emotions end. Now if we look at the moon, now the moon is actually also in a difficult placement too. So we have a lot of subconscious energy, and then we have the moon here in the sign of Scorpio conjunct Mars. So this tends to make somebody very emotional. Okay, so like when he has his emotions, he emotes them. And really, this is 5 houses. This is the 5th house. So this could have a lot to do with his sun, with the Mars being there. Moon, too, can kind of maybe indicate a girl. But this is really something that really they emote a lot. It's hard for them to control their emotions. However, the one thing that he does have going for him, though, is he has another exalted Mercury conjunct the Sun and Saturn here. So really all this emotional energy can be negated by the fact that Mercury and Saturn here are in the sign of Virgo. Man, we've been talking a lot about Virgo today. So going through his Dasha cycle, I pulled this up here. He actually got into his accident, I think, somewhere in the mid-90s, and I think it was during his sun period. And if we take a look at where his sun is in the 3rd house here, which is very interesting because it's not like it's in detriment. Now, usually death is indicated in like a Saturn cycle. Oh, and I think he actually did die in the Sun-Saturn period. I shouldn't say Saturn cycle. It's Saturn in his chart because it rules the 8th house. So I think the general terminology is people usually die in the Bhutki or the Mahadasha of the Lord of the 8th house. And for him, this really fits right. I mean, the Sun-Saturn. Other than that, I mean, if he was to continue, he was going to be going into his moon period. So he was looking at a lot of difficulty coming up ahead. I mean, the moon being very debilitated in the sign of Scorpio here, that was going to be tough. So I think his life was really shown about how, it started out really strong and then it just kind of started to go downhill a little bit. So actually a lot, because a lot of these difficult placements, he lucked out. These didn't get activated, but if this like placement here would have gotten activated here by the Moon Dasha, I could tell that would have been very difficult for him. So, all right, I hope you enjoyed Justice League Part 2. I will be doing more DC superheroes because there's a lot of material there. And of course, if you want to book a consultation for me, with me, or you can book it for me, but you want to do it with me, go to nobigsecretsyoga.com and click on book a consultation. Otherwise, if you have any show ideas, go ahead and email me at nobiusyoga@gmail.com. See, I got it this time. I do know my email address. So I hope you have a great day, and hopefully I'll see you here tomorrow.